Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat. My name is always Asmal. This is a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show should be on podcast by tomorrow. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Graham Paulsen, VP Human Capital and Enablement at Makosi. He previously worked in recruitment with a focus on the finance space. He's grown and led many teams in various fields. Graham, thanks so much for joining me today.
Always, thanks for having me.
Let's jump straight into it. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Graham Paulsen? Give us a backstory.
Sure, I'm gonna have to give you the succinct one. My folks were still up in Joburg. I was a Joburg boy, born and bred, and after school decided to study in Pretoria. I liked the warmer climate and did a degree in marketing. And after a bit of a stint in sales, ended up in recruitment because I'd known somebody working for, in those days, network recruitment, based in Pretoria as well, in the Menlyn area, and I lived in the Menlyn area, and that's really, I suppose, where I cut my teeth in finance and CA recruitment. It's probably still today, one of the biggest CA recruiters in the market. And I think what I learned early on is, you get a lot of generalists, and I had this affinity for financial services. So we got an opportunity with one of the big four banks, and it was interesting for me that they struggled to find talent in those days. I mean, there was a big product control offshoring situation going on in South Africa, and they were looking for IFRS 7 in particular. And that's kind of like where I wet my toes, and from there I realized that a lot of recruiters don't like to play in financial services because there's bigger barriers to entry with preferred supplier lists and BEE ratings and things like that. But also, not everyone understands the space, and I think I just have this natural interest in markets and investments, and it was a good synergy. So for a few years, I built up that business. I think at some point, I was dealing, in one bank in particular, I was dealing with about 270 different decision makers.
Wow.
I mean, it gives you a sense of like the scale of the banks and how many finance professionals they actually hire. But over time, started being asked to kind of recruit in other areas, and one of those was treasury. So a lot of CAs actually find their way into treasury, and in the banking sense, that's a number of your risks related to Reserve Bank reporting, so capital management, liquidity risk, things like that, and niched even further. And then we started doing credit risk, which uses IFRS models. They produce the data for the CAs to actually report on probability of default and things like that. And then I got the opportunity to run a team, and I moved down to the Western Cape, and then we really got into like a number of the insurers are down here as well. So we did CAs, we did quants, and then we also did actuaries later on. So we built out a full actuarial capability. So we were really like a full service suite for financial services, and I was with Network for about 10 years. And it was amazing. I learned a lot. I had some incredible leaders. They are still there today, the MD and the GM. And a lot of what I practice today, I learned from them. And then I got an amazing opportunity to join Makosi. And I think anyone that's seen us in the market or kind of heard our story understands the appeal of that. And it's 2 years in, and it started out as heading up the talent team, and over time that's progressed, and I've touched other areas in the business as well. But really outside of work, I'm a dad to two kids. I've got a 7-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. So it's busy at the house at the moment. And if I'm not at my desk, I'm hitting the trails here. We're very fortunate in Stellenbosch to have trails just on our doorstep, or I'm looking for a coffee at my local brew. So that's the summary.
Sounds good. Sounds good. But VP Human Capital and Enablement, that's a mouthful. And I know you were touching on other things also. You might have had other titles there before. What do you
Yep.
actually do?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, I mean, everyone would have seen this massive growth in firms that provide opportunities to our local CAs to work abroad, whether that's on site or virtually. And we're one of the players in that space, definitely. Today we operate across 16 different territories, different countries, from the US and Canada to Australia, UK, Ireland, even some fringe territories. We've got clients in Luxembourg and Amsterdam and others. So when I first started with Makosi, it was kind of core recruitment as well. So I built the talents team there with Darren, and in 2021, we had this exponential growth. I think at our peak, we'd scaled up to 1,250 CAs working for us. And the prior year, we were sitting at about a workforce of 250. I landed in August, so I had 4 months to kind of make it happen after finding my feet. And at a point, I think it was in September, we were doing 30 offers a day. So we built that capability. We were fortunate to have a great brand in the market and massive inflows, because I think, when there's a buzz and you're speaking to your friends and you get to know that there's an opportunity, we've got this incredible value prop, whether you want to go on site or you want to sit in the comfort of your home and get that international experience. There's a whole bunch of other things that we bring to the table. But that was a wild ride. And I mean, it was crazy hours and we made it happen, but the business has since normalized, so we had the scale up and we've kind of started finding our feet and I think a more normal rhythm. And then I got the opportunity last year to step into a role where I also took over the accountability for the HR team. And it's not just HR, we've got an enablement capability. So we've got a team of developers, we've got a proprietary platform that a number of our employees use. We actually do our scheduling through it as well. Our clients can actually view the profiles. We don't send a CV on an email. So we work very closely with our T&I team, technology and innovation team, to craft a great experience for our employees and our applicants. And then we stood up a year ago our L&D function for the first time. So I've got a number of CAs reporting to me in that capacity. So everything from technical updates to, kind of core skills. Anyone that's a CA here obviously starts out with IFRS. We need to teach them US GAAP. And then we've also got other areas that we've broken into, like employee benefit plans in the US. So we've got that and a coaching capability, and then obviously our fulfillment team that schedules for our clients as well. So it's quite a broad set of functional areas. And all encompassing. We've gone through a bit of a restructure recently in that space, augmenting it with additional organizational design and development, individual coaching. So it continues to grow and we continue to innovate, and as we listen to the needs of our consultants, we try and deliver that for them so that we kind of meet their requirements for the employee value proposition.
Awesome. I see you've also got an ISPr designation with APSO. What is that designation and how does it help you? I haven't heard of it before.
Sure. I mean, with a lot of other professions, if you become a CA, you obviously, through SICA, you've got a board exam and you've got a set of competencies and articles that you need to have signed off. And the same for a lawyer or a doctor. And there isn't really something like that in the recruitment industry. So what APSO, the industry body, sought to do is bring some uniformity in the level of competence that a recruiter might have. And really the ISPr is an international staffing professional. That one in particular needs at least 5 years of recruitment experience, and you also have to write an exam to get the accreditation. So I did that a few years ago already, but there are various levels to that. I don't practice pure recruitment anymore, so I haven't continued to pursue that route. Obviously, I'm trying to upskill myself in other areas as I get exposed to them.
Okay, that makes sense. For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end, so please add your questions to the comment section now so that we don't miss them. Now, I interviewed your colleague, I think, a year or two ago. And before the pandemic, you had quite a large contingent of staff working overseas. During the pandemic, you changed your model to mainly have staff working remotely. Have you started opening up those opportunities for consultants or employees to travel again?
So, it's incredibly interesting. And I'm actually glad you asked the question because our model was largely on-site for a long time. And through COVID, you had this change we saw it here in South Africa as well. You had the ability to work from home, and some people preferred it, and they choose to work in a role that doesn't require them to go to the office. But at the same time, yes, there's a contingent of our staff that wants to be on site because it offers them that opportunity to travel on the weekend, like the old secondment model, and work during the week. So there isn't a simple answer, and the reason for that is different countries are experiencing it in different ways. And how I can demonstrate that is when I was in New York last year, and we went to visit clients, we'd walk with the partner through the office, and I won't mention names. The entire office is empty. And in the US in particular, they're struggling to get the auditors back into the firms on some kind of regular cadence. And then when we were in London, we saw something completely different. Most of the firms are in the office, and they kind of laid down the law, so to speak, and that's the way they operate, and that's a slightly different market. So we're seeing, in pockets, clients are requesting some on-site, but definitely much smaller numbers to what we used to see. And part of that is, for clients as well, it comes at an additional cost to kind of pay for boarding and travel and things like that. Obviously, they also got accustomed to paying a lower rate, for a virtual option as well.
So if you're going to the UK, you have a better opportunity than maybe if you're going if you want to go to the US.
Yeah, and I mean, you see a lot of firms actively recruiting out of South Africa for opportunities on site in the UK, and a lot of agencies specialize in that as well. They'll pay for the visa and things like that. Obviously, with us, we've got clients as well that are asking for on-site. What we found is, with some of our staff that have worked for us for a year or two now, we've actually surveyed our workforce. And even the contingent that's interested in going kind of permanently overseas is fairly small. There's definitely more appetite for that kind of 3 months or 6 months stint, because they've still got family here, they've got loved ones, they've got commitments, so they'll kind of maintain their rental here, go overseas for a bit, earn a little bit higher, and come back. So that's something we're seeing as well. So it's really a mixed bag at the moment.
And you mentioned just before we jumped on that you might be starting to get into busy season. What level of staff are you mainly looking for? Is it newly qualified CAs? Is it more experienced staff? Where's the level?
It's changed over time, I must say. So there's definitely still the client that is quite happy to take a newly qualified straight out of articles, but with a number of our consultants having stayed on with us now into their second or their third year, we've got a kind of core workforce that's, you could say our workforce has aged a little bit, and our clients have also enjoyed having a more experienced senior. So if we talk about the US context, the fact that some of our guys are going back for their second or third year on the same clients, there's that continuity as well, and our clients are enjoying that too. It's not to say that they, if we don't have someone returning on their account, they won't take someone a bit more junior, but in pockets, we're seeing that preference. What it's enabled us to do, Tooways, this is quite interesting, is we had a big need from our employees to provide progression as well. So how do I actually progress from a senior to a manager or a senior manager as well? We obviously don't have a partner route, but this year we rolled that out for our employees as well. So if you join Makosi now, there is actually that kind of progression track that you can follow, and the associated competencies and assessments, we've built all of that out. And at our clients as well, then the type of work that you would do would be appropriate for the level that you're at as well. So our fulfillment team actually, matches you based on the day-to-day.
Okay, I didn't realize that you'd even be able to get to a senior management level. That changes the game a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we've even had up to senior manager level on the technical accounting side. So we don't just do external audit as well. So we have we've had internal auditors recently up to that level too, and we also play in IT audit and transaction advisory as well.
So, you touched on it a little bit, but other than audit, how has the growth been in your advisory consulting roles?
Yeah, I mean, if you go look at markets around the world, advisory is down, right? With the taps kind of closing on easy money, you're finding that there's a lot less PE activity, and as a result, it's not just us. I think across the board in that industry, it's tough for professionals. So we definitely have seen that impact on our clients as well. There's a lot of uncertainty, but it seems like it's changing now. I must say the sentiment seems to be more positive than it was this time last year.
So the US interest rate hikes are having an effect there as well, interestingly.
Yeah. And quantitative easing, I think, made it kind of easy to secure funding for a long time, and that led to a lot of deal activity. Simply put, that contraction and less capital available in the market is obviously just impacting the availability for roles and the amount of due diligence that needs to be done on deals.
So my one of the last few questions, I want to switch a little bit just from what we were currently talking about. Now, you've got lots of management experience. You've built teams, you've created teams, you've set up things. There's lots of people or lots of new managers out there. What tips do you have for new managers to get the best out of people? Because some of them they might not be as lucky as people at Makosi who get training on how to be a manager, or they might be in a small where there's just no capacity to train and you have to live or die just by your experience. So any tips for them?
I think if you ask my team, I've got some incredible professionals that work for me, and some are incredibly loyal as well. And they would tell you that I'm probably a tough manager because I've got such high expectations. But I think we are a high performance team. What's key is communication. So communicating what's expected and then the follow up. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how nice you are as a manager. If you don't deliver, you're going to have a problem. But at the same time, it's about being authentic and having empathy. At the end of the day, I think I became a better manager when I had kids, because I actually could appreciate for the first time and understood some of the challenges that individuals in my team go through. So there's a lot of moms in my team as well that also have 2-year-olds. So we've got that in common as well. And I get it. If the nanny doesn't arrive on a particular day and your kid's sick, it's game over. You're out of action for the day. But I think it's making the space in the room to have those conversations and just speak to kind of like how they're doing really and what's going on in their lives. Being aware that some people are going to take a little bit take advantage of that a little bit, but if you create that space, you're going to have a real sense of how your employees are doing, and that's when you're going to get the best out of them. So it's kind of being firm on what you expect and holding them to a higher standard, but at the same time, we're all people at the end of the day, and it's really a balancing act between the two. If I had to simplify it, I mean, there's so many aspects to leadership. There's a reason there's thousands of books on the shelf. The best thing you can do is just learn from good leaders around you. We've all had a good leader and we've had a bad leader, and that's probably where you pay your school fees. Don't do what the bad leaders, don't replicate what the bad leaders have done, and try and replicate what you've seen has worked and kind of caused that following. We're fortunate to have a great culture under Darren, and he's really set that up well in Makosi. So I think we've got a purpose-led organization that lives by its values. That already makes it a lot easier to manage in Makosi, and then it's what you bring to the table.
That makes a lot of sense. I can add a lot of value. Before we jump over to questions, if there are any questions coming through, this is one question I'd like to ask all my guests. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Jeez, it's a tough one. I think don't be in such a rush. If you kind of do the work and you're intentional about it and you treat people well, you don't burn bridges, you really set up your future self for success. I think I was fortunate not to have burnt many bridges along the way, but I think I was very competitive as a recruiter. Some of my team that worked with me previously will attest. I always came armed with the facts, and I could win an argument, but I think I've tempered that a little bit over the years, and I think that's served me well in the long run.
It's funny what you say about don't burn bridges. I haven't burned many bridges, but the ones that I've burnt, they come up every now and then. They remind you.
I mean, it's so true. My previous GM had said to me, she said, that's why she never burns bridges. We were on a call one day, and I'd moved to Makosi, and it was a year later. She said, look at us now. I'm your client, and your manager is now, your previous manager is one of your employees. So the manager that taught me recruitment actually worked for me at Makosi for a while. And it's just amazing to kind of see it come full circle. It's more about the relationship. And I think that's kind of the key takeaway there. If you build those lasting relationships, it's going to stand you in good stead.
We've got one question coming through, and I'm just going to share it quickly with you. We've got a question from Brian, who says, what opportunities do you have at Makosi for CAs who've been trained through top rather than TIP? So people, I suppose, at banks, investment companies.
And it's an interesting one, because it's a challenge we've found, is that, first of all, not everyone that goes through a top program then wants to go into an assurance environment in the first place, right? But at the same time, they haven't done the hours that a TIP program offers you as well. So we find that there's a bit of a ramp up there sometimes for the guys coming out of top articles. But that's not to say we can't use them in some of our other practice areas as well. So we service clients in the US investment banks that have things like product control. And what you often find is if you've done a top program at a bank, you've rotated through potentially product control, internal audit, and analytics division, and they'll sometimes have some of those areas that are complementary to that kind of global market space. So it's really just doing P&L, balance sheet substantiation on the trading book, but that's usually a foot in the door, and then from there you can obviously progress into financial control and other areas in the bank.
Okay, I think that spells it out quite a bit. Any last few words from you? Anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
Yeah, I think, we're about to start hiring for our busy season. Really, our busiest time is that Jan to April period, and that's largely because in the US, the year end is legislated. So 70-80% of their work arrives in that first quarter. And it's why the secondment programs existed in the first place. But because it offers a great opportunity to really access that international experience, and it's industries that we don't necessarily have here. I think it's a little bit taboo to say things like cannabis, but there's also industries like the technology industry, which, the scale we see is not what you see in South Africa. Some of our clients are the likes of the LinkedIns and others. So you've got that access to industries you wouldn't otherwise have. And, through the application process, you can kind of say, are you only interested in an on-site opportunity, or would you consider virtual? People's needs are different, and we cater to both. But really, more than that, you're working with an organization that has this culture that's entrenched, that is just magic. We've got our 10,000 Kids Impact Initiative, where we intend to put 10,000 kids through school in the next 3 years. And we've got a host of other kind of downstream opportunities that, our whole slogan is room to grow. So you might join us for 3-4 months, but what we've got is Makosi Plus, where we've got relationships with corporates, and you can actually secure a downstream opportunity as a financial accountant or kind of into commerce through that program. And then also for those that stay on with us, after 2 seasons, you can actually move to our clients. So we help to facilitate that move permanently, to the US or the UK if the clients are interested as well. So my recommendation is, if you want to hear a little bit more, get in touch with us via makosi.com and have a chat with one of our talent specialists. It's probably the best way to understand a little bit more about what's on offer.
You heard it there. Get in touch with them. I think that's a great. Go for it. Go for it.
No, I was going to say, come up to us at one of the events we've got coming up. We've got Trainee Trailblazers. That's a bit more virtual later this year, and we've got the Top 35 event. But we do the networking events through the year. We obviously did the new member events. If you see someone from Makosi, come over, have a conversation with us. We're always happy to give advice and answer questions.
And you've got nothing to lose by asking the question, so make sure you ask it.
Absolutely. There was a question around, do we only recruit qualified CAs? And the answer to that is no, it's not limited to if you've passed your APC. A number of our CAs are still writing APC as well, and we've got programs to support them through our L&D department as well. So it doesn't disqualify you from an opportunity.
It's a great question. Great question.
It's more the attitude you bring at the end of the day.
I think before too many more questions come, otherwise I'll keep Graham here the whole evening during load shedding. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Graham, thank you so much for your time.
Always. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of 2 Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.
Cheers.